Hi, this is Mark coming to you from Baker's Green Acres. Today is the 24th, Tuesday, and here it is again. It's past 10 o'clock at night. I'm just finishing up for the day. But I've met with a couple of folks today, and believe you me, Keith Cray's letter rescinding the declaratory ruling has really stirred it up. Believe me, there's a lot of people out there that wanted to see this resolved in a way that makes the citizenry feel as though, this is our country and not that, we're living under a tyrannical government. They don't feel that way. Okay, here's what we need to do. We need to have some action items to bring and remind people, and we need people to get themselves dedicated to doing these things. Now, let me explain the chain of command here. Keith Cray is the director of the Department of Natural Resources, so he's the top guy. Now, he replaced Rodney Stokes, who was let go, and I don't know, I think he's mowing lawns in Detroit or something. Keith Cray actually works directly under Governor Snyder, so it's a direct line. That's his boss. All right, so Cray is not an elected official. Governor Snyder is. Now, when I said last night it's their Achilles heel, it's that way by design. If we don't like the job that they're doing, then we can do something about it at the ballot box. But prior to getting to the ballot box, elections are going to be in November. We've got to get the word out there of why not to vote for a guy like this. And if I think that if he realizes that the public feels strongly enough about this, maybe he'll change his tune, and maybe he'll get educated on the Constitution and the constitutional rights of the citizens that he's serving. Okay? So in Cray's letter, which incidentally I had my wife post it at bakersgreenacres.com, and she put a little commentary with it that's pretty good. I encourage you to go there and read that. There's several things in there after reading it through a couple more times that we've seen, and I think I commented on several of the points last night, but let me just say one more time. In Cray's letter, he is telling you, the public, that he had to rescind the declaratory ruling, not because it was incorrect. It was just that you couldn't understand it. It confused you, is what he said. And he also said that it confused Judge Sulka. Judge Sulka made a ruling from gave an opinion of the declaratory ruling, and he said it was absolutely unconstitutional. And he gave his reasons why. And Keith Cray is saying, well, the judge was confused, so we're going to press on with it anyway. So here you have a judge that's saying, no, this is unconstitutional, you can't do this. And the director of the DNR is saying, I'm going to do it anyway. Well, that reflects really poorly on his boss, who is the governor. The governor's job is to shepherd the people of this state. We are a representative republic, and we are governed by a constitution. Right? The Constitution is the law of the land. It is not mob rule. This isn't a democracy. We don't get to vote on everything. Our elected officials go, and then they vote in our best interest. But we are definitely governed by the Constitution. And the Constitution, I encourage people to get it still, get a hold of it, just get the Bill of Rights and go through that, First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third Amendment. It's very good, and it protects you as a citizen. But you can't expect guys like like Keith Cray to consider the Constitution before he makes a decision. He's not into that. He's in his position to do what's best for the shareholders of the agricultural leaders of Michigan, evidently, because that seems to be exactly what he's doing. All right, so I think that the best place to fire your arrows are going to be right at the governor's office. Schuette's office is going to do whatever they're told. They're lackeys in this whole thing. You have to start going after Governor Snyder's office, going after Governor Snyder. And here's some of the points that you can think about, and I mean they're valid points too. If you have a governor that's not going to force his people to abide by the U.S. Constitution, do you really want to vote for that guy? I mean, do you want him in for another 4 years? In reality, this declaratory ruling ISO should be looked at and said, wait a minute, we can't do this. I mean, my county sheriff could have done that. It wound up coming down to my level, and I said, not only should I not do it, it's my duty as an American citizen to not comply with that, because it's completely wrong. So when you call the governor's office, bring that up. Look, I'm not going to vote for a guy that can't get a handle on the U.S. Constitution. Another thing is, in Cray's letter, that was a horse. He says that, or he implies that there are 2 species of swine. I think that when you call the governor's office, that would be a good thing to ask about. Ask them, are there 2 species of swine? And can you reference that, that notion? Of course there are not. And that was why we wanted to get to a court of law, because, of course, you have to tell the truth when you're on the stand, and if you don't, it's perjury. And that's a very simple question to ask of people who are supposed to be biologists or veterinarians and that work for the state. Because, of course, if they say, no, there's only 1 species of swine, well, that kind of blows the whole argument that let's add feral swine to the invasive species order. Any pig can be feral. So you've basically taken the entire species and saying they're illegal. That's what they did. But they're trying to say that, oh no, only Russian boars. Russian boars are a breed of pig. They're not a different species. All right, the thing to look at for species is, can they breed and produce fertile offspring? If they can, they're the same species. Period. End of story. All right, it's like a horse and a donkey can breed, and they can actually produce offspring. It'd be a mule, but they're not fertile. They just cannot produce offspring. So those are 2 separate species that have bred, produce offspring, but they're not the same species. In the case of Russian boars, Mangalitses, Durocs, Hampshires, they're all the same species. A Russian, by the way, is a nickname for the Eurasian wild boar. The Eurasian wild boar are the animals that live in the Pacific Rim and parts of Russia. They are wild animals, and people capture them and domesticate them and do selective breeding, and from that Eurasian wild boar, that's where you get your Mangalitsa, you get your Duroc, you get all the different breeds, but the root stock is the Eurasian wild boar. So for Keith Cray to say that we're only going after those pigs and hybrids of those pigs, well, every pig known to man is a hybrid of the Eurasian. And they know this, and it's scientific fact, and that's why they don't want to get to court. Now, the first farmer that is arrested for keeping these animals will be arraigned in his local court, and he has the right to request a jury of his peers. And, he can hire a lawyer and do all those things. But what they're counting on is the ignorance of people. And people don't like to be leaned on by the DNR, so they'll just do what they want. I'm here to tell you, do not comply with what they're asking you to do if it is illegal. You actually have an obligation to not comply with when they're asking you to do things that are unlawful. Okay? And it'll pan out in court. I mean, you have to have a little faith, and you need to look into this. But if you think you're going to be on that short list of people that they come knocking on your door, give us a call. We can help you out with that. Let's see. Another thing to ask the governor about, the governor's staff about, is how they plan to determine whether or not a pig is a Russian boar or a Russian hybrid. See, that's what the declaratory ruling was about. The people of Michigan animal farmers wanted to know, how are you going to apply this? You know, by what standard will you apply this? And we have the right to know that, so we know whether or not we're going to get a $10,000 fine per animal. And I know what that's like. So the declaratory ruling was actually very necessary. And I don't know if they can press on into the future without another declaratory ruling. I think they will actually have to produce another one if someone asks for it. So, and then another point that you could bring up, and I think as the points come to me, I'll just bring them to your attention, but this will be the last one for tonight. The root argument here is that there's a huge problem with feral swine in the state of Michigan. Right? Gone through this before. No one sees them. If there's a problem, you know, lots of people would like to shoot things in the woods. The governor needs to produce evidence that there is a problem before they go spending taxpayers' dollars on this supposed problem. And that needs to be brought to their attention. You, as a tax-paying citizen, can call there and demand evidence of this feral swine phenomenon. And why don't they put together like a YouTube video and just show the different pieces of evidence? And it has to be good evidence too. I mean, it can't just be a picture of a pig and a picture of a field. It has to be documented. I mean, there has to be proof that it was on the day and the location. So those are some of the things. Let's just start here. Let's burn up the phones to Lansing starting tomorrow morning and keep that going all day long. We can do that the rest of the week. Now, I posted a video last night, and 500-700 people seen it already. There's enough of us to do this, all right? Please, let's dedicate ourselves right now to making those phone calls and, be polite, but just keep those phones ringing down there, okay? We can do that. Call a couple times a day. And let's keep that going right until the weekend and see where things go. I did an interview with the newspaper here today, and that usually stirs it up. And there are some other things that are cooking too. But I truly believe this is the point of the spear. Either these guys are going to rule us, or we're going to allow them to govern us. All right, and I think it needs to be the latter. If we allow them to rule us, we're going to see more and more of this stuff, and it will not be good. So hey, this is Mark from Baker's Green Acres. Come on, let's get after this. Thank you.